Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the podcast. I am super excited. Just go ahead and just dive right in and get started. If you saw on social media, I've been posting a little bit of how do you make decisions. We live in this culture of decision paralysis, and I couldn't tell you what the definition of paralysis is, even if I tried. And I know it's spelled Paraly, you know, but I probably should learn how to spell better, especially if I'm going to write books and release books. I should probably know a little bit on words and how to spells. So that's what I'm super excited for today. So I don't know if you have ever ran into an issue in your life where you're faced with so many decisions in front of you. You're like, which job should I take? If you're graduating high school, what career should I start? If you're running your own business, what should I do next? If I have 6 things to do today, how am I supposed to know which ones to do? If I have 5 people to hang out with, who am I supposed to hang out with? I got to sign my kid up for school. Where is he supposed to go? Am I supposed to vote for this person or that person? Every single day, and I bet I can Google this right now and pull up some amazing stats of how many decisions we're faced with on average per day. You know what? Honestly, we should just look this up. How many decisions are we faced with per day? Let's see what the Google says. The Google says the average adult makes around 35,000 conscious decisions every day. 35,000. And then you add in this age of information. So the other day I was watching this through some reels, just scrolling and having a good old time. And I came across a reel that said, like, raising kids in 1950s. They got a roof over their heads. They're not dead. Feeding them food. Doing good as a parent. And then like 2 seconds later said raising kids today, and it had like 50,000 things like, should I discipline my kid or not? Should I feed them red dye number 7 or whatever? Should I not? Are they getting enough sunshine? Are they getting enough sleep? Are their sleep quality this way? Is this thing that way? And then all of a sudden it's sort of like, wow, like how did we go from life was simple to we made life complicated? And the only thing I could think of is there's a stretch of just, we're in this age of information now, where we feel like everyone knows everything about everything and we have to do everything for everything. One, our bodies are not meant to do that. We're not built to be everything. We're not God. And if you think about it, in this age of we're trying to just have all this information and be everything, that's very godlike. And that's what got Satan kicked out of heaven. So that's a weird thought. That's where we're going as a culture and as life. So I prefer the simple life. But one story I want to share with you about the decisions. I'm going to look at some stuff really quick here. About the decisions is we went to the zoo the other day, and as a family we were just really enjoying our time. It was one of the last few days I had off before I started work part-time again at this baby leave that I've been on, because it's been stellar. And when we were at the zoo, we had to figure out which animals to go see, and it's big enough that you can be there pretty much all day with your kids. But so we had to make a decision: do we go left or do we go right? And this time we made a conscious decision to go left. And when we go left, you see the lions, you see the giraffes, the zebras, the elephants, all the fun things. But the thing that stood out to me the most on this occasion was I saw the giraffes 10 billion times so far. I think everyone has seen a giraffe. Everyone's seen them on cartoons, real life, probably at your own local zoo. The funniest thing to me was I'm standing there like rocking the baby back and forth in the stroller, and my wife took the kids a little bit further down to look at another giraffe exhibit. But I'm standing there looking at the guy in front of me because he's probably 20 feet away. I could probably touch him. He was so wrinkly. Excuse me. I was shocked. He had like rolls and stuff. And I was like, I didn't know giraffes had rolls. I don't know if you ever did either, but that was new to me. And you're probably wondering, Stephen, what does this have to do with decision paralysis? Well, not really anything, except for I just wanted to share with you a quick little fun story about giraffes and being wrinkled. Like giraffes are wrinkled, like your grandma. If you're a grandma listening to this, I'm sorry, but you're kind of like a giraffe butt. See, just throwing some humor. We got to have a little bit of humor in our episodes, right? Or else it's all like learning and not enough fun. So, but either way, we can tie this into decision paralysis because we were at the zoo and we had to decide where to go and what to do. One of these decisions didn't really matter what we chose to do. We just wanted to go do it because we didn't have to think about it. But what about the more complicated decisions in life? Where do you send your kid to school? For all of us parents out there, which I know a lot of us who follow my podcast and Revived are parents. What about when it comes to how to handle your money? What if it comes with how to spending time with people? where to live, what to do, what church to go to. How do you navigate kind of these bigger questions of life? In my book, coming out soon, you can go to revivebrand.com/dadbook, and you can sign up for when the book is coming out and stay in the know with all the details. Highly recommend you do that so you can be first to know when it comes out. The list is consistently growing, so make sure to share this episode with people, let them all about it. But in that book, I talk about priority management a lot, because when you become a dad, you realize, wow, everything just changes, and how do you handle all these changes? So I went and researched in the Bible. Turns out God kind of gave this nice little template, this nice little look of relationships to prioritize with our time. I'm not going to spoil it all for you, but that is a piece of it. I'm not going to focus on that piece today in this episode, because I'm going to go even one step higher than that. So we got all these different levels of how to make a decision, but there's the first level. The first level is covered in the Sermon on the Mount. It's these two big foundational pieces. Then after that, it's like, okay, cool, here's like the relationships and priorities, and that's what I cover in my book. Then you can kind of get a little bit more granular from there, and you can take the waterfall as you want. So I want to read this to you really quick here in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew. I see, as we're going through this, I've missed this 10,000 times, and it finally dawned on me the other day. And so I know I haven't talked about like the truth, the second mile, how to give, how to pray, all these pieces yet. And I'll kind of be judging because I read the do not judge part here. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, so I do apologize. But here, we're going to jump to Matthew 6, verse 19. It says right here, don't store up for yourself treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. If your eye is bad, so your whole body will be full of darkness. So if the light within you is darkness, then how deep is that darkness? No one can serve two masters, since either he will hate one and love the other, or he'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. So, what stood out here to you? So, we can have I say so a lot. I'm sorry. Maybe I should have my AI video thingy say, cut out all the so's. So. Have fun with that. All right. When you listen to this, something must have stood out to you. But the thing that stood out to me was probably what you missed. We always hear this. It's the very last sentence, actually. You cannot serve both God and money. Think about when I was sitting on the couch the other day and I'm reading through my Bible. Just to let you guys know, when I read through my Bible, I don't read through my Bible to produce a podcast episode. I'm actually just going through my Bible. And then several days later, I'll be like, oh, you should go talk about that you learned. So it's kind of like I'm playing catch up. Excuse me. This last verse I was thinking about the other day is I was researching it, and then I put into ChatGPT, and I'm like, hey, tell me this like I'm a third grader. And then it helped kind of give me some new words, and then the thought crossed my mind about reading the sentence differently, kind of like a third grader would, and not like we do as adults. Basically, it's like you cannot both serve God, which is heavenly, in the heavens, the creator of the world, and money, man-made, human things of the world. So one cannot serve both heaven and earth. One cannot both serve, what's another way we could think about this? Eternal value, because God is eternal, and money, limited value, or timed value, because it's on earth. Money doesn't come with you when you die. When you die, you will be with God. God will be around the rest of eternity. You won't be with God if you don't put your faith in Him. Granted, we got to research what exactly happens if we just disperse into nothing or we're just separated for eternity. I think that's what it is. You think I would know this by now, but as I've been reading my Bible, I'm like, turns out a lot of things I've been saying all growing up may or may not be true. So I don't want to just go ahead and jump to conclusions here. But think about this. You cannot both have eternal value and material value. You can't serve both. So, decision paralysis. Which will you choose? When you're faced with that decision in front of you, we have these options on the table. We have the eternal value option and we have the material value option. Now, does that help a little bit with your decision paralysis? And what are you going to invest in? Something that has eternal value or temporary value? Oh, that's even a better way to say it instead of material. temporary or eternal? Which value would you rather invest in? Most of you probably have 401ks, cryptocurrency, Trump memes. That's another digital asset. Houses, all these different things. And we call those investments. We look at our investments and we pick out ones that usually have low fees, good return. We can be super risky and get high return or lose everything. But we all look at it from, I'm going to put in something and it's going to give me something down the road. And it's usually going to be a way bigger payout than what you have now. We can kind of think of it like this. So when you have value, okay, that was weird. My computer glitched. So sorry about that. So we have these two values. We have eternal value and temporary. When you look down the road, you take your decision that's facing you. Let's say putting your kid in school. Which school do you send your kid to? Because I'm a dad. My kids are growing up, and I'm starting to weigh out all my options. You got like homeschooling, you got private schooling, you got public schooling, you got charter schooling, you got this schooling, you got that schooling. There's 10 billion schoolings out there. And so if you're like me, you and your wife are probably talking like, what do we do with our kid? Let's pray about it. Let's talk to people. But the next thing you know, tie back to the beginning, we're in this age of information if you didn't know that. So there's 1,000 different voices speaking into like what you should do because everyone has information. Then you go online and it doesn't even help anymore. And you talk to your friends, you talk to relationships. You get some really good ideas, but if you notice, everyone has different opinions and different values. So that's why this is so important that Jesus puts it in here. See, it's not about just money because money is evil. I think he's speaking way deeper than that. Because when we look at money, money is value. Money is what we takes care of you. And I think Jesus was really pointing out here, we look at what takes care of us. Because look at the next section here. We will serve what we believe will take care of us. So, because of the next section, it says, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, about your body or what you will wear. Isn't life more than food and body more than clothing? Consider the birds of the sky. They don't sow or reap or gather into barns, yet the heavenly Father feeds them. Aren't you worth more than they? Can you add a single moment to your life about worrying? Like, stop worrying about everything. Therefore, don't worry about tomorrow, for each day will worry about himself. Let's rewind a little bit. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things are provided to you. For Gentiles eagerly seek all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. Kind of read the last 3 verses there a little bit backwards. But look at that. Basically, God's like saying, who are you going to trust to take care of you? God, which is eternal value, or money, which is temporary value. And based off those two things, which is going to take care of you, then you can kind of look at your decision being like, okay, I have this decision in front of me, like sending my kid to school. It's an example we're going to have. Now, what is best for the eternal value on that? And I'm going to have to trust what? If you're going to trust your temporary or eternal, your God or money, earth or heaven, you're going to trust one of those things with the decision you're going to make about your kid. Are you going to be all anxious and trust yourself and hope you make the right decision? You know, money is a big factor into a lot of things. Like, hey, you shouldn't send him or her to private school because that money can be invested into the stock market, make you millions in many years from now. Or you should send that kid to school because the eternal, like the eternal investment upon that child is astronomical. Like $1 billion would never do it justice. You know what I'm saying? That's a very broad scope. Or send your kid to this school because it saves you money or gives you money. I like this school example, one, because I'm kind of going through this right now, but two, I think it's very practical because sending, like, your kid is a soul. And when you now you're going to compare money and no money and eternal value because the kid's soul is going to go on for forever. And now you have this temporary value of money. And you're like, I want to save this for me to do what? And how you invest it, it's going to be very important. And then what you're going to invest into your kid. So maybe you don't do private schooling. And you're like, I'm going to do homeschooling. That is then you take that money that you would do it, invest it in something else because you played out in your mind where the eternal value is in the situation that God has given you in your life where it's best applied. See, I'm not saying to homeschool. I'm not saying to private school. I'm not saying to public school. I'm saying take a look at your life. Take a look at your kid. If this is the school discussion that we're in right now, I can give you 10,000 other examples. But just to finish with me as I finish this statement, look at your kids in their schooling. Look at all the options on the table. Evaluate your life. Now, look at the internal value, the internal perspective with the decision in front of you. Public school might be the best option. Private school might be the best option. Homeschool might be the best option when compared to eternity. See, we can't just say, oh, I'm a conservative Christian, it's homeschooling all the way, because this is what you do. If you're not going to subject that to an eternal value perspective amongst your child, you, your family, and everything that goes into that, you might be making the wrong decision. You can't just blanket statement that. Then on the other end of the spectrum, you can't just say public school because I'm a conservative Christian, I don't want my kid to grow up weird or whatever it might be, or exposed to all the stuff in the government about all these things. You got to look at the eternal perspective, the eternal value of that decision. You, your family, everyone around you. Because that's not just, you can't just one-off spectrum blank statement things. So now move out of the school example, move into the example in your life. What are you faced with as kind of this bigger decision? Maybe it's where you're going to live, what job you're going to take, a financial investment. Subject that, the things closest to it, and compare it to an eternal value and a temporary value. And then play it out a little bit on each one about who it's going to affect, where it's going to affect, what it's going to do to all of us internally and externally in regard to the eternal value of life. If we say that we serve Jesus and we trust God, then there's going to come a point in this conversation you have in your head where you're going to go, that's what I should do. But I don't know if I want to do that because temporary value, money. Interesting how this is what got me when I was studying this was how often I play this conversation out in my head. I'm like, trust God, trust God, trust God, but then I choose financials. And I know you're just like me. We all struggle with this. Dads, moms, grandparents, non-grandparents, cousins, aunts, brothers, sisters, you name it. Every human who says you trust God, you're going to be faced with, I can see money in front of me. I can see how money is taking care of me. But just like we just read it, because after he says you cannot serve both God and money, he says, stop worrying. I take care of things. Birds don't find their food. Bees, I don't think bees, he uses bees. Anyway, he says, don't worry about the lilies of the field. They clothe themselves. Like, I take care of you. You have to trust that. So when you look at the decision in front of you and make an eternal perspective value decision, it's going to come with a lot of trust. On paper, it will look a little weird, I guarantee you. But in the long run, it might just change your life or someone's life connected to you. We don't know what God has, but we do know that you can play out what will have an eternal impact on that decision in front of you. You can say, I'm going to move away from all my friends and family and everything just to live in this mansion in South Florida because I can afford it and I can retire early. Great, go for it. But play out the eternal impact of that decision. Play out the eternal impact of staying in your state and not moving. You see how that works? Just take anything you have and say, do I trust God? Let me look at something eternally. The souls are going to be impacted. God, influence, these things that you cannot measure with tangibles and temporary things, with money. It really can make you stop and think. Just like when I was at the zoo and I saw the giraffe with its wrinkles, it made me stop and think, why does a giraffe have so many wrinkles? There is no eternal value on wrinkles, but there is definitely a temporary value on getting stuck thinking about giraffe wrinkles. Yeah, I'm just trying to lighten it up a little bit and kind of circle back to the front of the episode. But I really wanted to just talk a little bit about that and kind of just what my eyes were open to. Like I said when I started this episode, there is a lot more that can go down the waterfall when you play it out in your mind. I just really wanted to settle on giving us a practical example, something that I've been struggling with thinking through right now. And I know a lot of parents who are very involved in this podcast, you're probably thinking about your kids too. And I just want to throw out, hey, we're all dealing with school, but how can we look at our kids now with the perspective of what is the eternal value of the decision I'm going to make for my child. And then go for it. And then trust God. Trust the one who's going to take care of you. Don't trust the money. Don't trust the temporary. Trust the eternal. Don't even trust yourself. Like, granted, trust yourself to an extent, but I'm like, you should trust God above all else. So hopefully this episode is encouraging and challenging you a little bit to think differently about decisions. Go ahead and sign up for my book, because when that comes out, you'll definitely read more about those sub-waterfall categories of priorities and time and how to now take decision making to another level. Maybe that's the next book I write, how to make decisions, or dealing with decision paralysis from a biblical perspective, not necessarily a psychological one, because biblically there are a lot of answers right here in the Bible. And we do have psychological stuff that is a huge, immense help. I love it. But how about you take the psychological, let's take the Bible and put them together. And now we figure out this is how we can make decisions. So maybe after this episode, go research how to make decisions based off science, and then take what God says, take what science says, because God made science, and see now how that can kind of maybe work together. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go listen to a podcast right now about how to make decisions according to like some new PhD person. I don't know. I'll find something. If somebody has a really good resource, feel free to shoot it to me. Well, thanks for joining us today on the Revive Podcast. Head over to revivebrand.com/store to order great apparel that we have out. Go to the Dad Book or the Dad's tab to sign up for our book coming out. And no matter what you do, keep praying for this book that it impacts the world. It's not about just I'm releasing a book. I really believe God called me to write this book so that he can impact dads everywhere. Mostly I just know one dad will be impacted. And I thank God for that, and I pray for that. Well, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for joining us today on the Revived Podcast. Perhaps we will change the name of the podcast, but sometimes just simple is better. But we're toying with it. I don't know. You guys take care. Thank you so much for joining us.